It is my absolute pleasure to introduce a platinum sponsor for TutorFest 2025. Meet Laura Gowers, a former Senko senior leader and founder of Lysis Dyslexia. With over 23 years of experience in education, Laura now equips tutors with the knowledge and tools to confidently support neurodivergent learners. At Lysis Dyslexia's Holistic Centre, she offers specialist dyslexia assessments, coaching, and CPT training, all designed to help parents and tutors spot the signs of dyslexia early and respond with clarity and care. Tutors are in a powerful position. You see your students up close, often noticing the subtle signs that something isn't quite clicking. That gut feeling? It matters. Laura helps tutors trust their instincts and know when a learner may need further investigation or a formal assessment. Because identifying dyslexia early can change a child's story. If you're a tutor who wants to deepen your understanding, get the right training, or refer a student for assessment, visit thisisdyslexia.co.uk or follow at thisisdyslexia UK on Instagram. Empowered tutors, thriving learners. We're going to talk about visibility. We're going to talk about like why this is important. Talk about like three main things really, like mindset, how around being visible for your business. We're going to talk about like how we can make it slightly easier, and then the different types and the different ways that you can show up. So Vicky, you're a bit of an expert on this. So I'm looking forward to asking you a few questions and just getting your thoughts on it. And then we'll just generally share like what we've found out about this over the last few years of running a business.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about the mindset of turning up for your business and what have you found out? What do you help others with in this area?
So I think the fear at first is so real, and I can 100% relate to this. Like, I think sometimes like we forget because I don't like to say this, but I suppose now I am confident with visibility and people see that, and therefore don't know that I really struggled with it like in the early days, because I had all those same thoughts going around in my head about what will people think of me. Basically, that's what it all came back to, that fear of, but what will people think? And will they laugh, and will they say mean things? Like that's what I was so scared
But
of.
then some of your content is meant to make people laugh.
Laugh. Yeah, well, it is now, but I was more concerned about um the so I don't mind that. Like, I really want people to laugh, but if they're laughing at me like, who does she think she is? This nonsense, trying to set up her own business, like, what a joke. Which is genuinely what I thought people were saying about me. And they might have been, I don't know. But that was stopping me from fully like going for it. Yeah, so I've got over that now though. Like, if people want to say, who does she think she is, then I think bring it on.
Okay. What do you think helped with that?
Oh, I think it's not an overnight thing.
Mm.
So I think it's a baby steps thing, but it snowballs quickly, I think, when you start doing it. So the first little baby steps of, maybe at first it's just a photo of your face that you're putting out there, and maybe it's telling people what you're doing, and then it's working towards like, a video, but maybe not talking yet, and then it's working towards that, and that, like, all that kind of little bits of progress adds up over time, and also at the same time, every time you do those things and you survive it, nothing bad happens, everything's still okay. I think it helps to create that sense of like security, that it's actually safe to do this.
Yeah.
And seeing the results as well is really motivating. So when people do comment on something that you've put out, and in a positive way, and say that you've helped them and that they like it, you know, that's really motivating too.
Mm. I wonder as well, like with that side of things and that like looking at what other people are potentially thinking or saying, like how true that is, or whether that's just us inside our own head. So that's
Mm.
another, like I used to think this a lot, like actually nobody's really that, like people actually want you to succeed, if I'm honest, in most cases. I know not all the time, but in most cases they do. So they become like supporters, even if they're silent supporters and they don't actively do anything. They're not saying anything bad because we're all running our own lives and doing our own things. People are just preoccupied with their own stuff to be worried
Mm.
about what you're doing. So that was always a big thing for me. I was like thinking about that and making sure that's an affirmation that I would come back to when it was like my time to share a video or putting out the next post, which was always cringy. And I think in this space in particular, when I was first doing videos for the Grow Your Tutoring business page or the group, sorry, I would post and close my eyes. I was like, oh God, I just got to get it out there because I was really worried about what other people were thinking. But I suppose there's a little bit of courage and being brave around that, regardless, like you said, and you can build up, I suppose, that trust that it's okay and it will always be okay.
Mm. Yeah, I think that the vast majority of people that you know will be supportive, like you just said. Like,
Mm,
and generally, people are nice, and you know, unless they're either not interested or positive. There's a very, very small number of people who would ever be like actively mean.
mm,
And I just think I've definitely got to a place now where I think if anyone's going to say something mean about me, it says a lot more about them and their own unhappiness and what they're carrying and dealing with. So actually, that reframe of like, oh, I wonder what's gone wrong for them that they're so like
mm.
so bitter.
I think there's something here about the response as well in general, because social media, and we're not just going to talk about social media here, but it's the easiest thing to bring to the table first, is that when you are putting things out there, it really is visible. Like, so a lot of people can see it. And then that opens up the world of people commenting negatively or even like getting trolled, those kind of
Mm.
things. And that's a block in itself. It's like, oh no. Or even I've heard secondary school teachers especially say, but what if like a 13, 14-year old sees a post and then they say something and it's, you know, and then we get stuck in that place of fear
Mm.
rather than being able to take actions. So I think that is something, and it's something to think about, but it shouldn't be something that stops us from taking action. What advice would you give for somebody who was experiencing that sort of fear?
Um, the fear of someone seeing.
Trolling or putting a negative comment.
Mm, really, really hard first time it happens ever. It really stings. If
Mm,
you do get a negative comment, really stings. And you know what? Actually, literally last night, so on like one of the local community group things, somebody was asking about. So I work in an area where we do like entrance exam, 11 plus stuff. And somebody was asking for a recommendation for a tutor. So a few people had recommended me on this post. And so I was like seeing it. And then there was someone who came in talking about how, oh, you shouldn't need a tutor to get in. You should just be able to go in. It's all wrong and blah blah blah. Um, and then somebody had like put a response about actually you do need some preparation for it. And then I had sort of responded with, oh, I agree. Like, I don't think it's beneficial for any child to go into any sort of exam blind. And actually, it would be really overwhelming and potentially very damaging to their self esteem to do that. And then this guy comes back and says, well, obviously, you'd say that because you're making money out of people,
mm,
which if that was the first time this had happened to me, I would have probably been really thrown by that and really worried about what to say and how I'd look. But I think time and experience really helps in that you're like, I'm confident with what my offer is, and I'm confident that there's countless families who have benefited from what I do.
Mm,
So my response was like, yeah, that is my professional opinion based on years of teaching experience. And
mm,
this is what we do at Calme Tuition. So
mm.
I was like, this is a fantastic advertising opportunity. Um, so thank you for that.
This is so true. And I listened to someone talk very early on in my business journey, and he was saying about this guy was saying about how you should try to engage negative comments in your like social media because that is what drives the engagement and the interest.
Mm,
And he was talking, I mean, I don't want, I think this is quite controversial, but he was saying like being more extreme so you definitely find them. And he was likening it to people like Piers Morgan and Katie
mm,
Hopkins, who people sit very much on like, well, this is my hill and you're not going to move me from it. And I will argue till, the cows come home.
mm.
And and it's hard to actually make a case against it if your goal is to just drive engagement. I know that's not our goal as business owners. We actually want to drive business. So when you get them engage, it's not our goal to do this, but you can engage. But is there a point where you go, no, there's no point anymore. It's not serving anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Like that whole no publicity is bad publicity, all publicity
Mm,
is good publicity thing. And yeah, the attention thing. But I think there is a line because I think as a tutor, we're still in a role where we're working with children. You want to come across in a certain way. So I would definitely be on the rise above it
mm,
wagon
mm,
because I was tempted. This guy who was commenting, there was loads of grammatical mistakes in his writing, and I was really tempted to be like, "Oh, noticed that you might need a bit of help with your grammar. If you want to
mm.
come along for a lesson, you can." But I thought, no, that's not how I want to come across.
But you did think those things,
I
Vicky.
did think them, but then I thought, no, I thought better of it
I I
because
I've
I
done
think.
something extreme.
Have you?
I reported somebody, yeah, to their place of work.
Oh,
Yeah, because what they said wasn't okay and it crossed the line and Facebook wouldn't deal with it. But in their profile, they had their place of work.
okay.
And it was so extreme that I was like, no, do you know what? That's not okay. If you was on the street, you'd have been arrested for saying that out loud.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I copied it and sent it to the business owner and was
Mm,
like, the thing is that and it wasn't just me either. So guy was targeting specific ads to do with tuition and
right.
then being very nasty is like the best way I can describe it. And he was basically on his main profile, when you clicked his name, had his place of work. I was like, so every time he does it, it's an advert for that business in such a poor light. And I was like, this is not okay. This is not
Yeah.
okay. It's not
And as a
okay.
business, I feel like I'd want to know that if somebody was behaving that way. So,
Yeah. But it would need to be, it was quite extreme. It would need to be really extreme for me to go to that level. And
mm,
but other than that, it's a quick response. And then if you carry on, like not bothered.
mm,
Block if you have to. I mean, something we've experienced recently inside our group where people are commenting or we get people like I suppose posting outside of the norm or it's not as positive as it would be. So we often say this like it's not happen often in the group. It's a quite safe space, but we'll have to send a message and go, do you know what? That was against the rules because of this reason, and then bring it back in. But that's not specifically trolling. That's just like making sure there's boundaries in place, which I think is what we're talking about now. Is like, what's your boundary as a business owner? What's okay and what's not okay? Okay, let's move on because I know we could probably do a whole session on a whole podcast on talking about that
mm.
like trolls type thing on social media. We also said about this showing off, like that feeling of like I can't post because people are gonna think I'm being arrogant. They're gonna think I'm just showing off how good I am.
Mm.
And that's quite a tricky thing to overcome. And you said you've done this research around this and said it's actually linked to rejection. Like you're scared of being rejected.
Yeah. So I think two things come into it. for me, it's like, so like the things that I've found out, and I'm so into this whole like, self-improvement psychology stuff. I've got a friend who is a psychotherapist, and she talks a lot about people pleasing, and especially for women, sorry Rich, but growing up in this good girl mentality, it's called. So if you've not heard of that before, it's like really interesting to go and read about. So the good girl mentality of like, don't be good but don't show off, and it's no, that's too much, it's arrogant, and really trying to stick within these guidelines, that's the okay space to be in. And growing up like that, it's really hard then to sort of break that mentality of, oh well, that's showing off, you mustn't do that. But if you reframe that as like, but it's not showing off, it's just showing up.
Mm.
And how is anyone supposed to find you if you don't show up? And then you've got something to offer those people who want to find you. You can really help them. That's what they want, and that's what you want. So yeah, I think that kind of like really trying to undo that and reframe it. It's not showing off, it's just showing up
It's
helps.
a really good reframe.
And but the rejection is real, like that fear of rejection. So I just got back from a little Tutors Thrive coffee morning, but we were talking about this and how you could put out a video or something where it felt like a vulnerable share, and no one likes it or no one comments, and you feel deflated because you're like, oh, that was like really scary for me to do, and now no one's
Mm.
even like, no one cares.
Mm.
And it's that fear, that sense of rejection. But you don't know who's seen it. You don't know how many people have seen it and gone, oh, that was amazing, but just not commented or liked it,
Mm.
because we do that all the time. If you think genuinely yourself, do you like and comment on every single thing that you see and, spend time looking at on social
Mm.
media? You don't. So it doesn't mean no one did like it, like in the grand, like in the general sense.
Does this come back to like vanity metrics? Like we're so like, I suppose, overwhelmed by social media in a sense that it's like, comment, subscribe, like it just happens all the time, doesn't it? We kind of view the success of a post based on that sort of engagement. And yes, they're really good for us to track and have a look at. It can be a really good indication of how well a post is done and at reach and all those kind of things. But if we're putting out posts just for that reason, it's not likely to be that hard hitting anyway. And
Yeah.
actually, are you putting out a post because you'd rather have the reaction like you just said, like, "Oh my God, I've read that. That's really hit me." I know I don't. Maybe they didn't like or post it because it wasn't or comment because it wasn't the right time, but they've been left with something. You've changed somebody's day based on what you've written or
Yeah.
turned up and said. If that's the aim, then long term, everybody wins.
Mm. And I think, yeah, so sorry, I've just lost what I was going to say, but so you sometimes as well, you can have like, you can see that loads of people have seen it
Mm.
and no one's liked it. And then sometimes what's really frustrating from like a social media metrics point of view is that people send you a private message saying,
Mm.
oh, I really enjoyed that. It was really good. And sometimes you're like, oh, well, I wish you would have just commented on it because then other people might see it. And, but that's just the natural way that people are behaving.
Mm.
That's okay. But what will happen is if people, do look at stuff and then they start to see you more, and it's that kind of like slow burn, building a relationship. But that's where as well, oh gosh, we could harp on about this all day, but like the engagement is so important. Like you engaging with other people as well encourages them to engage with you, all that
Mm.
business. Oh, and then the other thing, sorry, I was going to say was the perception that we have all the time that as soon as you put out a post on social media, every single person who you are connected with on social media sees that post. and we just know that that's not true. So we have to kind of be mindful of that it's
Mm.
actually a very small like fraction of your followers or people in that group that you've posted into who actually see the post unless they actively go and search for it.
I mean, I don't think it's that different to putting up a leaflet in a supermarket. You
Yeah.
put a leaflet up in a supermarket, not everybody who visits that supermarket is going to see it within
Mm,
10 minutes of it being there. You know, it's going to take a while. And unfortunately, though, some of the issue with social media is sometimes it just disappears. You know, because if it hasn't hit the right algorithm, it will just go. But that should
yeah,
be your fuel to post more often and be more consistent
exactly.
and
Yeah.
repurpose your posts. Like just because you've done one post, it didn't work the first time,
Yeah. Yeah. That's the
repurpose
other
it, make
thing.
tweaks.
Like well, I did a video last year and no one said
Oh, yeah, I
anything.
advertised it this one time and my groups didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, well, let's move it on because I think like with the mindset, I think we get that we need to work on our mindset. But it's good to know the kind of often the same blocks that come up, like being worried about what people are saying, how they're viewing you, whether they think you're arrogant or not. I mean, most of these things are so unlikely. This idea of rejection, which I think is we just prized open the lid of something. We didn't even go into that deep enough, but people will know will resonate. But there was also like this idea of like that self-sabotage here, because this is something which I've experienced and continue to experience. And we were sharing before we recorded about how I've shown up and sold for other people within, say, our tuition space, and then how I've shown up for myself. It's been completely different. And how like I was finding really visible when it was for somebody else's thing, but when it was for mine, I've kind of hidden away. Like I've posted about it, I've sent a couple of emails, but then not gone. I'll say over the top. I don't think we ever go over the top in our. We kind of keep it quite measured, but certainly I would say I probably posted maybe 5 times the amount for the other person I have for myself, and therefore they got more than 5 times the amount of results compared to what I see myself. Now I can sit here and go, "Oh my God, that's really deflating." But if I look at that properly and go, actually, is that come from fear of rejection? And then the self-sabotage comes to the table and go, no, you're not turning up enough. Like, if you can do it for this person, why are you not doing it for yourself? But then once we're aware of it, we can make some changes.
Mm. Yeah, it's not self-awareness, isn't it?
Mm. Okay. So how do we make it easier? How do we make it easier to show up? How can I be better at it, Vicky?
I think you have to go back to the like purpose behind it. So
Mm,
why do you have to? Like, what are you going to get out of it if you do? So
mm,
if the reason for showing up is to grow your business, do you want to grow your business? If the answer is yes, then that's what you need to do because
mm,
or you say like, well, I'm happy for it to take 5 years, to grow in the same way that somebody else would in a year because
mm.
they're doing that consistent showing up, even though it is uncomfortable. Like I'm going to say at first, yeah, but also like then throughout there's always something that's like a level of discomfort.
Yeah.
Um, and also just letting go of the word should, like what you should or shouldn't show up like do what feels right for you. And we've had this conversation before around like authenticity, which is a huge buzzword, especially around like social media and stuff, and authenticity sells and that kind of thing. And it's like for me personally, I don't show up on a video where I would have like no makeup on, not brush my hair, like not thought about maybe like the clothes I wear. Does that make me inauthentic? Because I like to put my lipstick on before
Mm,
I show up on a video. And I would argue like no, because that's just who I am. Like that's the way that I like to present myself. And do I judge other people if they don't wear lipstick? No. Like that's
mm.
the way that they are, and that's absolutely fine. And I think that the way you show up attracts the people who will like you. So there'll be people who don't like anybody, and but there'll be loads of people who love what you do and who you are and the way that you come across.
So I think that experience plays a part, like actually turning up and doing it,
Yeah,
because then that's how you develop trust
yeah,
in that this works and you'll end up enjoying it. I went through a similar journey as you, like with the whole video thing, where I was like, oh no, and this is something that I really know I need to do for my business because I want to reach more parents. I want to make sure parents understand how I work. And I think the best way to show that is via video because they can see me. They can actually feel that energy that I want to bring to the business and with their children. I think that undoing whatever the block is the way forward. Like whether it's the rejection, whether it's the procrastination around that, you'll do everything else but, and then it's put off for another day. So if you can just make that start and then that understanding that your first, however you show up, actually, we're going to go through a number of ways that you can show up. How, so whatever it may be, but the first blog you write, the first email you send, the first video you record, the first Facebook post you create, it's not going to be your best one, and you can only get better as you develop the experience. You can only create better content if you're creating content. And we get stuck with the, like, I won't do it yet, I won't do it yet, into, I'll do a little bit. And it worked a bit, but then we still haven't really dealt with the block yet. And then we come out again in a month's time, we do something else, or and then there's another block and whatever it may be. I mean, I don't know what your experience is like. Like you've been in business for a couple of years now, or coming to your third year, right? So you go, are there different blocks as you grow? Does this ever go away? Or are there always blocks at every step?
yeah. I think that's so true because I think I was just thinking there, every first thing always feels really hard and
Mm,
really like scary. So if you think like, okay, what happened the first time you ever had a phone call with a client, like a potential
mm,
client, like a sales call, how did that feel? Like, did it feel
mm,
totally okay and comfortable? Probably not. You probably
mm,
were like second guessing yourself constantly and going like, oh, what are they going to say when I tell them the price? And, you know, nervous.
mm.
Whereas, like, once you've done that, like 10, 20 times, it's
Yeah.
like to off a duck's back, isn't it? And you sort of go in, oh, yeah, well, here's the price, here's the times, take it or leave it, mate, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so it just
Mm,
becomes easier the more you do it. And I think like anything, even outside of business, like anything new that you were trying to do, it's always going to be hard at fit. Like I was such a rubbish driver. When I had my like first few driving lessons, I was terrified and would drive at like literally 2 miles an hour because I was so scared. And
mm,
like over time, obviously, you just build up like a bit more of a sense of confidence, like,
mm,
okay, I'm all right. And,
mm,
sometimes you do need those baby steps. And like, so with like video content, say, you can do that in a very gradual way, like make it feel safe. Like, if you're going to come and work with me and I'll hold your hand while we do it.
mm.
And, that sort of, it can be a gradual process. You don't have to just dive in at the deep end because like that's what someone else is doing.
Mm. I like that. I love the driving analogy. I think that works for so many different things because we experience that as an adult and we remember it. Don't mean that first time going out and then you're looking at the gear stick and you're like, right,
Yeah.
checking your feet and then trying to put that all
Yeah.
together with checking the mirrors and all, yeah, everything thrown in is quite
Yeah. And
tough.
think how many times before that moment you've seen other people drive, you've thought, oh my gosh, it's so easy.
Mm,
Driving's easy
yeah,
because
I
you've seen
agree.
someone doing it. And it's like, actually, it's quite tricky.
I think there's some logistical things here as well that would help. So, for example, like if you got yourself to the position where you did all of this and you was doing really well with the social media and it was on your business, it was growing well, but you still didn't like elements of the creation of the content, whatever that might be, like you can outsource it. Yeah, and it's usually quite expensive, like as in the investment, it's usually quite a lot per month to have someone do it for you. But if that content did generate really good business, it would pay for itself. So there is an element around that. But I wouldn't recommend this brand new. You start as lean as you can, and then there's the schedule it. Like you batch create,
Yeah.
and then you schedule over time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm let you into a little secret. This is the third podcast that I've recorded today. And I recorded two yesterday and I recorded two the day before because I know I want to make sure there's podcasts coming out. I'd like to do two a week, but I definitely going to commit to at least one a week. I'm not going to be able to do that on the fly all the time because I'm quite busy and there's times when I'm not even in the office to record it. I don't really like doing it anywhere else because I know I've got the good mic, the setup's here. I could do it on my phone, but I just don't feel confident enough to do it on there. So I like to make sure it's a safe environment when I do it because I turn up with more confidence. And it's the same, and I'm applying this to the podcast, but you might apply this to your emails, you might apply this to your social media content. Facebook gives you a really good tool to schedule your stuff. Like
Yeah.
on the Meta Business site, you can schedule to your groups, your page. You can then use that onto your personal page, and you can sit down and create a ton of content for the month ahead, and have it all done in just a few hours. And you'd never have to worry about your social media content. It's done in two or 3 hours. I mean, I
Mm.
might say that because I've got a little bit more experience of creating content. But let's say you were just starting out for the first time and you've got nothing yet, then maybe you've got the next month or so is going to take you 6 hours to sort out the month's content. But
Yeah.
the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and you'll also get to know what works and what doesn't, and what types of content work for you, what you want to avoid. I think it just comes from experience a lot of it and just trialing things and improving as you go. I really want to make sure we leave with something like for people to take away. So obviously the mindset I think is a longer term. Let's just bring back that whole there are blocks at every stage of your business. It's not like you're going to grow a successful business, let's say to 10K a month and go, that's it. I'm never going to experience another block again. There's going to be things that are going to slow you down. There's going to be things you don't even realize yet that's going to get in your way. So this is a constant thing that you have to overcome as a business owner. However, there are different types of content. So if we are worried about creating different types of content or worried about creating something that really represents us, you say, well, I don't really like video, Vicky. I don't want it. It's not what I want to do. How else can we be visible? What other options have we got?
Um, I mean, obviously, you know I'm a champion for the video content because it works really
Mm.
quickly, builds the trust really quickly. We've talked about that. I think that it it's gonna if you're online, it's hard to get away from advertising online, but you can go back to like the sort of old-fashioned ways of advertising, leafleting, getting yourself out there, in-person events,
Yeah.
um,
Because then,
even just to build your confidence as well. Like, so being able to talk about your business will be good practice
mm,
for any sort of like visibility. Going to like school fairs, that sort of thing as well. Just getting known in your area if you're like a face-to-face tutor. Um, but
yeah,
I think that, so I'm sorry, I am going back to the video
go
thing,
back to
but
video.
the the thing that comes up as well as like not being like and like being seen is the sound of your voice. Which I get this as well, like so because why do we sound different on a recording than we do in our own head? But then other people say, no, that's exactly how you sound.
I
And
can confirm the way you sound now is how you sound
well, there you go.
in real life. Can confirm that little experiment.
So I think if you do things like, do you send voice notes?
Mm.
Like if you're just talking with your friends or family on WhatsApp, do you send voice notes? If you don't, if you're someone who hates the sound of your own voice, do that. Start doing that just with people you know. like
Mm.
with people who are close to you, start sending a voice note. And so it starts to feel it, because even sending a voice note, I think at first feels weird because you're
Yeah.
talking into something and no one's there, like listening. It's like you're
Mm.
just talking into the void. So start doing that, build, like that sort of like building things up slowly. And the other thing I think for if you can for your tuition business, if you can get do a video that involves kids, like the kids who you teach, obviously with permission, blah blah blah. But if you do a video of you in action with them, just set the camera up, start recording, and then just teach as you would normally, you'll forget it's there because the kids will distract you
Mm.
or do something with them. And because children have like that, they don't care, they're not self-conscious, and
Yeah, they love
they'll
it.
they'll bring you out of yourself as well. So
Mm.
I think that if you are nervous and you can get the kids involved, that's a bit of a winner as well. And they'll encourage you to get like move forward.
I do like this. I like the step in towards the video stuff because I'm the same as you. I believe it develops trust, just it accelerates it.
Mm,
And we want to try and make sure that people are saying to us, "Oh my God, I feel like I really know you." That to me is like the ultimate aim with that approach
mm,
because it does just develop that. I think it really does. How many of us I use football, but you can use TV shows or films. There's times when I really feel like I know the West Ham players because I watch them so much.
mm,
No,
yeah,
no idea really what they're like at all. But you just develop like this weird attachment relationship. And I've experienced this in with the tuition business where parents have turned up for the first time and gone, I've watched the videos, I really feel like I know you. And I feel like that's a massive win. However, for those who are stepping towards video and they're not quite ready yet, and they
mm,
might be doing these things in the background, so they're in preparation, we still need to be
yeah,
visible. There are a couple of things which I think we should be doing, and I harp on about this a lot in the course where we talk about the content creation machine, this long form content to short form. So creating something much longer. This also develops trust. But often you have to create some kind of loop between the two. So I always recommend start with something longer. So if it was video content, great. Talk for 5 to 10 minutes about something you're passionate about and then
mm,
run it through something AI or watch it yourself and pull out the bits that you think are really key, create smaller clips out of them, share them, and then put the link to the longer content. Because on social media, you have like zero point 0.4 seconds to grab someone's attention. But once you have it, they're more likely to click links and things. So if we were talking about visibility today, for example, and we've got a nice sound bite, Vicky said something amazing about videos and why it's important, we'd clip that part, we'd make that the hook, but we'd leave the link to the longer podcast. So we've
mm.
started with this, but then we link it to, or we link people to it by using something that's really short and snappy.
Yeah, that's the hook.
That is what we call the hook. And then they're into the longer form content. That's how we develop trust. But we can do this with blogs. We can do this with text as well. So we can create something that's
Yeah.
longer and create small snippets from it, which are really high level snippets or good golden nuggets that then take them to the longer form content. Now, those people that follow those links, they're the ones who are highly likely to become your clients because they're really invested now. I know I'm only using one post, but they might do this 3 or 4 times. And it doesn't have to be a blog. I don't know what the character limit is on Facebook, but it's a lot. So you
Mhm.
can have these long text Facebook, but they're not as effective there.
And on Instagram, you get really long captions on
Mm,
Instagram too, because you want people to be clicking that see more, like
mm,
so that it opens up the caption, because it fuels your sense of like engagement, getting pushed out, that sort of thing.
mm.
Um, oh, what were you just saying?
I'm saying about this long
Oh,
form to short form.
Oh, yeah. So what I wanted to say was this is what I tell people to do with testimonials as well, because we get these gorgeous testimonials from parents that are really long and gushy, and they say so many nice things about us, and we want to post it, obviously. But sometimes they're too long. So you copy and paste the gorgeous message or review into a Canva post, and then it's there. You put it on your social media, but there's too much writing on the graphic, and people don't stop. Well, they're unlikely to stop and read the whole thing because it's too much. So what you want to do is pick out the best phrase or sentence max, one sentence maximum, but ideally just like a phrase that is going to capture people's attention, and then put the whole review in the caption. So don't put a whole testimonial in a Canva post or wherever you create a graphic. Put it in the caption. That's my little tip.
Great tip, great takeaway that. We're going to finish on the overall takeaway for me from this conversation is this thought of feeling safe. So when we was talking at the beginning about the mindset and the things that get in the way, our brain, the reason we go down that path is our brain is perceiving some sort of a threat. So if you take like my example of why am I showing up for somebody else, which I love to do, by the way, I'm not certainly dissing that. Like I can show up and really promote somebody else's thing, but when it's my own, I'm a little bit more reserved because there's no rejection for me attached to me selling it for that person because people are showing up for her and not for me. Right. So my safety element, my brain's not perceiving any threat, only something positive. Whereas for me, I'm like, oh no, people might not want it. People might not buy, and suddenly it comes completely different mindset. But that's our brain just trying to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah.
And everything we've spoken about today, of any block we've had at any stage, is really our brain's just going fight or flight. It basically comes back down to that core reason.
I think I 100% agree with that, and it always comes back to that, doesn't it? The feeling of safety. But I would say, okay, if this is how we're feeling, we don't feel safe putting ourselves out there. Do you feel safe when you don't earn enough money to pay the bills? Or do you feel safe in the job that you hate going to every single day? Like, where do we draw the line with that? So I think the thing with visibility that we can't get away from, the bottom line would be people can't find you if you don't put yourself out there. And they want to find you because they want your help. Like, you can help them. They want to find you, but if you're not showing up, they can't.
Man, it's powerful that. And when you realize that, it means you'll start showing up more. People are waiting for you. You just to show up. Yeah.
Literally waiting for you.
Okay, we'll leave. Let's leave it there, Vicky. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No worries.
And if this resonates with you, again, I'm asking this on podcasts now because it really helps us. I was talking about like social media and chasing the likes. This isn't really about chasing the likes. It's about getting this podcast out there to as many people as possible. Leave us a review, subscribe to it on whether it's Spotify or wherever you listen to, or YouTube. Like, we really appreciate that. It makes a big difference. It's a great way to support what we're trying to do within Tutors Who Thrive. So we would love that. And if you have any questions or anything you'd like to share, email us on the usual, it's all in the show notes, or message us on Facebook or leave a post on Facebook somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, we'll speak to you all soon.
See you soon.